Welcome back to a new episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. We have had an amazing week. The stock price has been really spiced up. If you know, you know. And there is just so many things happening this week. And I was a little bit tired because it's quite late here in Sweden. And then Matt came in and I saw him and I was like, I'm so pumped. Let's do this podcast. So welcome, the co-host of this show, Matt Money. Very nice glasses.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's I figured I would wear these because, man, we are shining. This thing is a bright light in the sky. I think we're gonna there you go, man. But I didn't realize how I look with this, but I look very aviator-esque with these sunglasses on. I feel like I'm in a little bit of Top Gun. But anyway, very interesting podcast, or not podcast, TD Cowen interview with Adam Spice. I know we'll get into it, but I listened to it again and it fired me up even more the second time because I fully concentrated on it. I was literally in the car just listening to that before I listened to it the first time. There was a few nuggets I got the first time, but I was busy working or something during the day and I wasn't able to fully concentrate. So anyway, I'm very excited about today. So much so that we're shining, so I had to bring the sunglasses in. So thank you for having me, and very excited for this next hour.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I also have these Victory glasses. You know, I first wore them on Palantir Weekly, and I was in between if I should wear it or not, but I probably should wear it for this episode because what Adam Spice said on this conference, it was nothing short of extraordinary. And yeah, there was nothing really to not like about that conference. So people, if you don't know what we're talking about, Adam Spice gave a talk at a conference, an aero, what is it called? No. Whatever, space defense conference. And I actually put the link for you if you want to listen to the original conference in the description box below. If you want to check it out, I highly recommend it as a Rocket Lab shareholder. And I was suspecting this would take up a huge part of today's podcast. So I even prepared, there is a Twitter account who did a fantastic summary. And I can just share it as a crutch for us in case we miss something. But because you seem so pumped, Matt, just go ahead and tell us what you liked about it. What was your key takeaways?
You know, it just reiterates and underpins the belief that I have within Adam and Peter to truly lead this organization. And I think that it was interesting to kind of hear their takes on it. And it was really enlightening because we never really get to hear too much in free speech, right? It's always very much quarterly results. And so when you get into these opportunities to listen to them and be a little bit more free form instead of being super strict about, you know, because you think about it, when you get into these quarterly results to conversations, it's very much guided upon SEC principles and what you can and cannot say. And when you get into these conversations, you know, more off the cuff, you get a little bit of more color around what, you know, they can say. They can't be held liable. So it's a little bit easier for them to kind of talk about. So things that I want to note, they're $355 million acquisition, convertible debt offering definitely seemed more aimed towards inorganics. They stated that a good bit. And I thought it was pretty cool to hear this color. It was very towards the end. So hopefully people were able to listen towards the end. The gentleman from TD that was asking was like, why now? And Spice basically said, raise cash when you actually don't need it, right? You're not in a corner, right? And they still had $300 million of liquidity, which was why I was very surprised initially upon why they did this debt offering. And it added some color as to, hey, you know, we have pretty much everything in the bag that we need. You know, we're going to have Neutron on the pad by the end of the year. We're going to do Archimedes testing within the next 2 to 3 months. You know, we're going to be, and once you kind of have the Archimedes testing, you're going to be able to start getting a lot more Neutron contracts signed, sealed, and delivered. And then coupling that with, we're really trying to figure out utilizing SpaceX as kind of a model as to what to do to truly get yourself into the 50, 100, $150 billion market organization, what to do. And he said, SpaceX and Rocket Lab aren't too dissimilar. Obviously, they're in different stages of their development, basically. But at the end of the day, he kind of stated that SpaceX, as they are an end-to-end space company, they don't necessarily go out to the commercial space and the merchant space to be able to actually deliver products. They mostly just internalize it utilizing Starlink. So a lot of what they do and the launches that they do are for their own purposes. And so they basically said the thing that Rocket Lab is truly missing is that piece, right? And they're trying to figure out the best way to accommodate that and find that. They think that there's a piece of the puzzle that's kind of missing, which is, yes, we can be an end-to-end space provider for merchants outside of our kind of remit, but also they want to look for this reoccurring revenue stream direct to consumer or something like that, some sort of service for constellations that they can build that will allow them to have as much of a gross revenue blow up like SpaceX has had with Starlink. And so they're looking for that opportunity. And I'm not sure if the inorganic piece is really going to feed into that or not. But he basically said all we're missing is the payload piece, like the piece that actually understands and gets us to that next level. But it was really also interesting to hear, and I'll finish with this piece, the SDA contract and some color around that. And I think we're going to hear more about it on the 27th, which I kind of thought made sense, right? Why they pre-releasing earnings and the debt offering, etc. There's going to be a lot of color that they provide now that they can on some of the timing of revenues for the SDA contract and things of the like. And they've already provided some of that. Did I just get canceled out? No, never mind. For some reason, my Chrome closed on its own. That was a little strange. But he basically stated they're in line for the future SDA contracts that are yet to be kind of awarded. And so that's more opportunity for them. And then he also noted that he thinks that, there's a lot of synergies associated with the potential to be the launch provider for those the SDA contract in 2027. And he thinks, yes, the contracts are split. You obviously have the people developing the satellites and also people that are launching. But at the end of the day, he thinks because they have that ability to be the end-to-end and be able to kind of synergize with if there's any delays on the one side, that they can meet obviously the obligations on the other side, etc., that they're obviously a front runner. However, that being said, they would need a Neutron rocket. So it's kind of like you need to get over that hump. And then there's that piece of potentially being able to be the person that actually lifts those SDA satellites into space. And then I'll finish with the following, which I want to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back on this one, which is the potential to be kind of cash flow break even or positive. And obviously that's what kind of the title of this is today. We can go into more depth with it. I know I'm kind of doing a 5-10 minute monologue here, but finalizing, they basically stated that they're on track with Neutron. The capital investment's about what they expected. They've put in about 100 million to date. Other people have put in 25 to 50 million to date to help provide and supplement that launch potential. And then he thinks that this year in 24, they'll put about 100 million to date. So it's about 250 million to get on the pad. And so they feel like, for a minimum viable product, they're doing a good work and they're meeting their obligation to that. So they're pretty much on track with that. But after that, you kind of go into the ability to start reaping the rewards. And so, you've had this kind of cash burn to be able to get Neutron on the pad. And once that kind of disappears and you start to be able to collect some of those revenues from that, it's going to be really exciting. You're going to potentially have up to 3 launches next year of Neutron if things go well. And that's $150 million in revenue at a minimum by itself, which, if you think about it, was about 60% of the revenue that we had for 2023 just from 3 launches. So that's a really big rundown of the 40-minute conversation that he had at TD Cowen, but we can dive deeper into some of the color around all those statements. But that is just like a mind-blowing amount of detail all on its own that he went into, and it was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I was just thinking, what a difference between the other company we both follow. Like when Palantir was in its low days, it was like a black box company where we were like, we think this is what's happening with their finances. We think this is what's going to happen. And I feel that this interview with Adam Spice, it was just like, here's all the cards and you like put them on the table. And there was like nothing, like I can't think of a single detail that they said that I wasn't happy with. Maybe the only thing is that they're not trying to relaunch Electron this year. But then when he said that that's because the team is so focused on the launch cadence and getting Neutron to the pad, I'm like, okay, fine. Like that's a trade-off I'm willing to make, and any day of the week. And yeah, and then the second thought that I have is like, why do we even have the earnings call now? The numbers are pre-released, and I feel that like Adam Spice basically laid out how the company is doing into every division of the company into very, very big detail. And he even kind of gave guidance, cash flow positive in the second half of 2025, which is the first time I've heard them do that. So I thought that was very, very significant. And maybe it was me who has missed it in the past. I've heard you say it. I had my model of when they would become cash flow positive, but I never actually heard the company reiterate that that's what they're going for. And he did it now. And I'm very sure that, as you said, this was a freer conversation, but the SEC laws still apply. And they did read in the beginning of the conference that this is going to contain forward-looking statements, and they take no responsibility for not, so yeah, you kind of cannot BS your way through these things. So I thought it was a very, very significant thing.
Yeah, I think he didn't explicitly say cash flow positive, but he did say the EBITDA growth and the cash flows would take a pivot point. So there's not much of a pivot point to take if you're only burning $20 million a year, a quarter. Sorry, so close to $80 to $100 million a year. So I think you're right. I think the positive point would be cash flow break even, if not, slightly cash flow positive. And you have to think, once you start getting those Neutron missions in, and I think once you actually start developing a lot of these contracts, he said that the contracts that for the SDA are kind of organized in a way where they can kind of take in revenue, not on delivery, but rather while they're delivering, so they can kind of do long leads and things of the like, which is a little bit different than maybe what you've kind of done in the past, because you are a prime contractor. You're now being able to kind of take in the revenue to be able to help with supplying and pushing and do the working capital piece amongst the other contractors in the bid that you kind of worked with. So it's a little bit easier. It's something I'm more familiar with. Like whenever we drill a well, we do long leads, we order equipment earlier, and so the company isn't necessarily coming out of pocket hundreds of millions of dollars and waiting upon delivery to then get repaid, right? You're kind of working together directly with the partner because you're the prime contractor to be able to be the person that the working capital is flowing through, and then you do the work. And so with that, I think there's going to be a little bit of interesting pieces about it. But the thing that I think was the most, so with that, I think you're going to have a lot more ability to have better margins kind of going forward instead of waiting upon delivery, kind of like what we are with the Global Star contract in 1Q of this year. There's been a lot of capital that's gone into that over the past year and a half, and we're really going to only start to get revenues from that after delivery this year. So it's a little bit of a different contract comparatively than what we're going to be getting with the SDA. But the thing that I thought was really crazy was his explicitness around the $355 million debt offering, and basically just up front, not saying like anything else, but basically saying inorganic growth. I think is like insane how he was just like, there's not anything else that we're really going to talk about other than inorganics. And maybe it is. It's like, we're looking for $50 to $100 million bolt-on opportunities that we think are going to be useful for us. And then we're going to use the other $200 million just because. But I don't think they're going to go out to the market and buy like something that's $350 million. Maybe they will. I mean, maybe it will be something that is truly that pivotal. But I thought it was a really eye-opening experience that he didn't really beat around the bush. And I think maybe before the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, you can't explicitly say, hey, we're going inorganic, because that might interfere with maybe some of the debt offering terms and stuff of the like. But I mean, it was explicitly stated, the fact that there is potential for acquisitions for this capital, but it was kind of like the last sentence, it wasn't really like a prime part of the conversation. So now that you kind of got the money coming in the door, it's kind of like, yeah, this is used for acquisition. So very exciting in that realm, because they've done phenomenal acquisitions to date.
Yeah. What do you think it can be? Because when I was listening to the conference, so he said that the only thing that they're missing is the payload capabilities, where they're looking at inorganic expansion. So I was thinking, like, what can be a payload? Because they already manufacture satellites, as I mean, that's clear, right? Like, that's in their space system. And I'm like, what else is payload? Like, how do they mean? Are you
I'm not 100%, man. Like, they have the ability to create satellites. They have the ability to operate the satellites. They have the ability to power the satellites. They have the ability to bring re-entry to satellites, which we'll hopefully see here, with Varda in the coming few days. I mean, to me, it's like, I've always thought, what companies out there are doing stuff. So you have the companies like Black Sky, which is a Palantir spec. I'm not saying that because it's a Palantir spec, but they provide government level sort of graphics for specific parts of, the world, that, monitoring maybe for say Russian sort of intelligence, or for, intelligence on, not Russian intelligence, but get intelligence on Russian data or land masses. And they've done some on some Chinese seaports as well. And they're starting to hit a pivot point as well, where they're kind of cash flow break even to gaining cash flow positiveness as well. And that would be a very cheap add-on. But I don't know the longevity of something like that, right? That doesn't have the application of, say, a Starlink. And so I'm trying to think of things that are out there, because they literally in the conversation stated, we're looking at SpaceX as kind of our big brother, right? Like, we're envious of them, with what they've been able to do and accomplish, and we're a few years behind, and we wish we could emulate that. But they're looking for their Starlink, and I'm struggling to kind of figure out, is it a communications piece? Is it a replication of Starlink? Do they, we talked a little bit about this last week or 2 weeks ago. Is it an Australian, New Zealand specific, because it's so remote?
This Raycon.
Well, I don't know if it's Raycon per se, but
we said in that podcast that Raycon is about $300 million. And now that when I listened, and at that time we were like, for sure it's not Raycon. Like, we can close it because it's just too much money, and they raised this money for security and a possible acquisition, right? But after listening to Adam Spice, that he's so clear, like, no, this money was for an acquisition. It's like, it kind of again falls back into the, like, that like in the realm of possibility, because they did raise that much money, and that's what the money is for, and that's how much Raycon costs. And as far as I understand, they do make, satellite communications, but it wouldn't be a cheap deal. Like, that's the only thing that doesn't match for me, that Adam Spice was speaking about, that, we got this Virgin deal, which was 16 cents on the dollar. And it's time to go shopping around for similar deals. And I'm like, Raycon, they would have to basically pay an overprice to take that company over.
I'm not 100%, man. It makes you think. I mean, I think that there is possibility. I don't know how much Starlink has done for Southeast Asia internet and ability to bring that. I mean, there's rumors, and I think Elon's kind of disproven this, that he's been providing internet services to people in Ukraine during this time. I don't know the answer, right? All the people that I know that have utilized Starlink have been Canadian or American customers that live more remote. I don't know, of course I'm an American-based investor, so I don't speak with too many external U.S. investors except yourself. But I mean, have you heard of a lot of Starlink customers over in Europe? Or I mean, I'm kind of curious because that could be an avenue where he's on a different hemisphere, right? And he might be able to get access to the Japanese, Australian governments, whereas maybe SpaceX doesn't have that connection like Peter Beck does, right? I mean, we're literally launching a Japanese focused satellite within the next 24 hours. You have those contracts that are in place of working with some other American allied countries. Maybe providing satellite services to the governments is the next frontier for Rocket Lab.
Yeah. That I don't literally know anyone who is a Starlink customer here around me. I have a co-owner in the company who lives in Denmark on a farm, and she was looking at getting Starlink, and to be honest, it would have made sense to them because they were waiting for the government to bring fiber out to them, and then it's like all the 10 neighbors had to agree to it, and it was like 5,000 or maybe $7,000-8,000 upfront cost, and then it was like $20 or $30 a month. And I know that she got surprised that the Starlink would be like over $100 per month, and then she couldn't think with it when you can, like, that was a bit weird for me because that it's like you have to amortize when you get the fiber for $8,000 a month. $8,000 one-time fee, plus all your neighbors have to agree to it, and plus it takes however many years until they actually do it, as opposed to you just pay $100 a month and then you have an immediate solution. So I think it would have made sense for them to get it, but they decided against it. So you are right. It might be that Peter Beck has better connections here, but I don't think that I don't know what they can go into, but I don't think it will be an internet. Yeah. There's a comment.
I'm curious what you think it could be if it's not internet.
I spent a lot of time thinking about it, but the thing is that I think Peter Beck is a very savvy businessman, right? And he knows that he doesn't have a lot of capital. Like, he talks about it a lot, that they have to do things differently because the two of his biggest competitors are the world's two richest men. And he knows that the Kuiper internet satellite constellation is coming. Starlink is very, very advanced. And I believe that there is one more that is coming. And I don't know how much sense it makes to go up and compete with these guys when you're already low on capital. That is a weakness for you. But I don't know what else it can be. I'm curious myself.
I mean, providing internet to rural Australian customers, I don't think would be a stupid thing. I mean, there's 20 million customers right there. I mean, not all of them are rural, but you have an avenue, and there are parts of Japan that are somewhat rural as well, and a lot of Asia that's rural. I'm thinking a lot of different countries in that respect. So I think that there's penetration by Starlink, and yes, they've been able to make good headway, but is there an opportunity to potentially buy from an Australian company versus, say, well, I guess it is a United States company, but more Australian facing, New Zealand facing sort of company than say SpaceX?
Yeah, you might have you probably have a point that there's room for many players in this, and that part of the world, like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, I guess they would naturally be more open to a New Zealand internet.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. I'm really excited to see. I mean, I think regardless, they have the capital now, probably over $500 million, $550 million. We'll find out, I guess, at the end of the conversation on February 27th. maybe because some of that was full year 23 stuff, and then some of it obviously is happening in the January, February timeframe. But I'm sure they'll give a little bit of color as to the future liquidity going into 2024.
Yeah. I had a very interesting question, but it just escaped my mind. No problem. It's going to come back to me in a second. In the meantime, while this question is coming back to me, so if we look back to, because I really want to finish this topic of what was brought up at this conference. So I pulled up this Twitter account, Space Equities, fantastic account to follow. So he marks some points here. So one thing that was very calming for me is they are saying that the reason, because there has been some frustration of like it's supposed to be 22 launches this year, and then it feels like it's going kind of slow. And what's happening? Is it that they're not able to manufacture electrons quick enough, or is the infrastructure not able to handle the electrons? And he basically clearly said that it's always the customers. Like, it has never happened that a customer showed up and they didn't have an electron ready. And that to me is so calming, that even if they end up having 18 launches, this year, I know that, okay, that's not because there's something fundamentally wrong with Rocket Lab. Like, what they actually need to optimize is be more of a one-stop shop and actually like produce the things in-house so that they don't have to wait for the customers. Curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I think as they get more and more on this sort of cadence, I think that there's probably going to be a workaround with these guys to say, hey, in order to get on our list, I know they want to pride themselves in quick turnarounds and things of the like, but I think that they need to state some sort of notion that, hey, in order for you to get on the docket list, you can say get in or target a Q2 of 2024 launch. But in order for that to occur, you need to be prepared by, let's just say, the first month and the first quarter of 2024. So 2 months ahead of time. If you want to book by a quarter, right? Your satellite needs to be prepared and in our hands basically by X date, or it gets pushed back, right? I think that they need to instate a little bit more of that, and I think they're going to be, as time progresses, more and more being able to dictate, all of that. So it gets a little bit more predictability in the scheduling piece, and if that's the case, then it says, hey, if somebody wants to say alleviate themselves and get themselves to space faster, get prepared by 1Q of 2024 for a potential Q2 launch. And if anybody delays, you'll be the first person, right? And it kind of get themselves on like a hopper list of, okay, if anybody backs out. And I don't know necessarily if, I'm sure, I mean, these guys are way better at this stuff than I am. I deal with this on a logistics basis from the oil and gas side, where I was kind of scheduling some of our rigs and stuff in the Gulf of Mexico. And I was always looking for, well, if this well drops out, what's going to backfill it, right? And when you're talking about heavy intensity event driven sort of stuff like that, where things can go wrong, you always need to have kind of a backfill. And I'm sure that they do a good job of planning that. If not, dude, call me, Peter. I got some ideas. If you need somebody that's looking at all these different launch cadences and stuff like that, and kind of backlotting and like forecasting and having decision gates and stuff like that, dude, like, call me up. That would be a blast, or at least I can help consult in that lens. But I'm sure they got it on hand. But that just gets my mind going on how you would organize a launch by launch sort of thing. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting now into like my work mode, and that's got my mind fucking buzzing. That's crazy. Anyway, I just went on off like a completely different lens, and I was just like, damn, I was just like, anyhow, I was like backing up and looking like 24 months in advance. And anyway, sorry. It's interesting. I don't know the answer. to it, but I think
Yeah,
that they need a little bit more of a hopper mode.
yeah. I got the question now. What I wanted to ask. So
Yeah.
what is very interesting is, as I'm kind of new to Rocket Lab, so I haven't been around Rocket Lab when there has been an acquisition announced. So we all know that the equity raise, like if they in the future will run out of money and they announce an equity raise, that will be like a minus 10 to 20% drop in the stock. And when companies make acquisitions, I feel like, it can go either way. Like sometimes the market loves what they do, and sometimes the market hates the acquisitions. So in your experience, I didn't have time to check this before the weekly. How has the stock reacted to like when Rocket Lab announced acquisitions in the past?
Yeah, so to give everyone some context, I don't know how many people we got in the room, but we've been doing pretty well with respect to continuing to bring an audience to this. But I've been a holder since Vector Acquisition Group, late 2020, early 2021. So by the time this thing de-SPACed, they'd already kind of announced some of the acquisitions because they got about $900 or so million in cash because of the de-SPAC. And at first, I thought this thing was just going to be a launch company, and I very quickly turned around during the right after the investor presentations, and Spice is talking about how they're acquiring this company and that company, and I'm like, what the hell are they doing, man? Just put these rockets into space and let's call it a day. Like what's going on here? And I think what ends up happening, and I think that this is evident across a multitude of companies, not just Rocket Lab, but generally speaking, what's great for the company in the long term is not always great for shareholders, and what's great for shareholders is not always great for the company in the short term. And what I mean by that is generally speaking, the investors are very quarter to quarter focused. When you have great companies and where the shareholders get extremely well rewarded is when companies are very focused on the next 5 to 10 years. And that, generally speaking, is not how retail investors think. And so when it comes to that, the thing, and I was caught into this is the reason why I'm bringing it up. In 2020, 2021, after they started announcing the Solero acquisition and the ASI acquisition, all that, I was just like, dude, why are you blowing money on this? Let's get Neutron on the pad and let's go to space. Like, I don't understand. And here I am now in a much more comfortable position, knowing that the company has my best interest at mind to add and become this behemoth of a moting sort of boat that's just turning more and more into a battleship every day, that's just going forward, and it's amassing some sort of piece that isn't necessarily focused on, hey, get me from $5 to $15 in the next quarter. It's focusing on building $100 to $200 billion company.
Yeah,
that takes time, and that takes prudent management of finances. It takes prudent executive decisions. And so I think always, and most of the time when you see this, when a company pivots or makes a decision that people don't necessarily fully understand, especially people that are very short-term focused, like myself back in 2020, 2021, when all this de-SPAC stuff happened and all the previous mergers and acquisitions, you get very confused. But if you listen to the verbiage, right, if it gets you confused before you sell or make any rash decisions, listen to the verbiage, right? Which is why I wasn't so concerned. Initially, I think I was a little bit concerned because of this convertible debt piece. It seemed out of character. It didn't seem like I fully understood it, but that I gave the benefit of the doubt. Whereas, like, with Rocket Lab, since I've been in it now close to over 3 years, it's like I've always been humbled because of my inexperience and lack of knowledge in the rocket arena. These guys live this, 100 hours a week, maybe more. I'm lucky if I get to talk or think about it for 2 to 3 hours a week, right? So these guys know what they're doing. They live, breathe it. I've just come along for the ride since launch number 20, and I've been fortunate to be here since launch 20. These guys have been around since 2006. Spice obviously didn't join in 2006, but he's been a great addition to the team, and he's got a lot of experience in the semiconductor industry. So all of that trying to say is the stock can go up, down, sideways. Who knows? Who cares? If it goes down, it's a great buying opportunity. I've never been more fired up about the company after listening to Spice at TD. I feel more and more confident that this is going to be the prime number 2 company in this industry. I'm fired the fuck up. And I don't care if the stock goes up, down, or sideways. I'm going to be adding more. I'm upset that I have puts, and if I have the ability to not long puts but short puts, and if I have the opportunity to close those out for even a little bit of a sniff of profit to convert that into shares, I would love to. I have my eyes on close to 12,000 shares. I probably will try to get to 15. I just talked to my buddy before I hopped on this podcast. I was in Discord and I was like, my guy, how many shares you got? I was like, you need at least $1,000 worth of shares. He's like, I'm close to it. I'm like, we got to get you close to $10,000 worth of shares then. Like, this is one of those companies that if you can afford it, to go to zero and not lose your mind, buy as much as you can without hitting that breaking point. Because I'm very confident. And yes, there's always the possibility. And I'll hand it back to you. I know I'm not 100% answering your question, but I'm just fired up. I got the sunglasses on. I got my Spice shiners on. But, I think this is going to be a company that truly surprises us. I've always been very confident that at a minimum, it's going to be a $10 to $12 billion company on the low end. More confident that it'd be a $50 billion company in the medium end. But I can see avenues where this becomes a $100 to $150 billion company, and even more so upwards of $200 billion, very similar to where SpaceX is today. I can't advise anybody. I don't have that, background education certification to do so. But do your fucking due diligence, listen to the call, and if that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what else to tell you. We're going to the moon, Venus, and Mars, boys, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's the only stock where you actually can say we're going to the moon. So, yeah. I mean, I love it, and I feel the exact same way. I mean, again, I haven't been following Rocket Lab as long as you have, but when I listened to this call, I was like, boy, this is it. Like, I cannot believe like how calm Adam Spice is, and he confirms like everything in the company is going according to plan and is going good. And it's kind of weird how low the stock price is compared to how good the company is doing. I guess that's the nature of the opportunity. The fact that the stock was at $5, and then I never understood the reaction that we went down to 3.92. Like, it, even without the details, it didn't make any sense. And when the details came out of how little dilution we're going to, get, and what the money was going to be used for, I was like, to be honest, I was short puts on margin. This is like very technical. So that means that's a bullish.
It's not
move.
bearish, by the way, for people that are not familiar. It's
I was just gonna say it's a bullish move. So I got how do I say it in a PJ13 way? So something almost came in on the back end for me, and that day when we dropped the 20%, I was like $50-something thousand minus, and normally I would cut my loss and be responsible. Maybe that's not and I really had to sit down with a pen and paper, and I'm like, this cannot be like this reaction to what the market is doing. It doesn't make any sense. And yes, I sold the puts, but I sold them at the wrong time. And if I were to sell puts, like that minus 20% day was the day to sell them. And I'm like, okay, so if I would like close out my position, I would sell puts again, but I already have the puts, so I might as well just keep them. And so far it's been a very good decision. And they're still in the money, so I might get assigned quite a lot of Rocket Lab shares, which I'm not in any way, shape, or form sad about. So I was a little bit curious when you said that you don't like that you're short puts. I'm like, why? It's amazing to be short puts, unless they're cash secured.
They are cash secured for me. I would just rather at this point own the shares. And it's scared to me because what could end up happening tomorrow, the day after, because of so many great things down the pipeline, you could see something where, because I can only buy those shares at the current moment based off of the contract, $5 or below to be put the shares. It could be that the stock ends up going up in, say, the next 5 to 10 weeks when I have these contracts too, which I think is March 20. I think I just rolled them to Marches. Let me just double check. I have 25 contracts, which is 2,500 shares worth of short puts dated $5 puts March 2022. And yes, I'm up on them a little bit, and I guess I could buy them back for $1,500. And actually, shit, I have a lot more cash. I don't know where all this cash is coming from in my Roth IRA. But anyway, so I could buy those, outright, and just buy the shares as is. But shit, yeah, I don't know. I'd rather, instead of having this contract and closing it out, it kind of puts me like, do I wait? Do I see if I can get them cheap, or do I just stop being a pain in the butt and just buy them, at the $5 price tag and call it a day? And that's kind of the problem that I'm kind of sitting in,
Yeah, it's such a dilemma, because I was in a very similar dilemma that if you sell the puts and you buy the shares, it's like, and then the stock goes up, you would have won both ways. So like, meaning that if you wait 10 cents, you win 10 cents on the puts, but you lose 10 cents because you didn't buy the stocks. So it's a really weird dilemma. So I'm not.
Well, I mean, if we hang out at $4.89 here, I mean, I'm going to be able to pocket, $1,500 or whatever on these contracts, which is great. But what if it goes to $6? Then I can't turn around and unlock that capital. It's like technically I'd be buying for less, and I would love 2,500 shares, not 2,200, not 2,300. I would love 2,500 shares, and unfortunately, I put myself in this position. And it goes back to what you and I were talking about before, which is like sometimes you just buy the stock when you have the opportunity, and don't mess around with some of these puts, and because if you're truly that bullish, buy the shares, right? Anyway, just some food for thought.
Yeah, it's a huge topic that we can go into, because it has so many aspects. Like the puts can give you cash flow, and the stock doesn't get. Yeah, it's a huge topic, and if the audience really wants to hear us talk about it, maybe we can arrange it one day. But we try not to be options weekly. You already have a Celsius daily over there
Celsius
on another
daily,
yeah. So back to Rocket Lab. Somebody says, I can't tell if the glasses are real or a filter. No, this is real. These are our celebration glasses, because this Adam Spice interview was so great for the company, and it's not reflected, in my opinion, in the stock price yet. So they discussed Neutron, and you also spoke about this. And again, he was so confidently saying that this engine test is coming by the end of this quarter or the beginning of next quarter. And he specifically said the reason why I can say it is because we're basically at the end of the quarter and it's so close, and it's happening. And he said that after that point, they will be signing paying customers, and there will be contract announcements, because everybody knows in the space industry that once you have tested the engine, it's like 6 to 12 months and the rocket is going to be flying. And to me, that was like, oh my God. Again, I know Rocket Lab has this track record. If they put something on the pad, it usually works. If this engine test doesn't go as planned, that's gonna really suck stock price wise. But
I look at those as a buying opportunity now, Vince.
Yeah. That's correct. That's correct. So what are your thoughts about like Neutron? It's so rare in the space industry that you say 4 years ago that it will take us 4 years to develop this rocket, and it will take us this much money, and they actually seem to be coming in budget and in time for this rocket, and they seem very confident about it.
Mm-hmm. capital efficiency, I think, is something that Rocket Lab is a true foundational piece of their culture and how they operate day to day. I mean, you've hit it multiple times on this particular week, but we've talked about it multiple times, and they also talked about it at TD during this call with Spice multiple times about how, you know, they're kind of the poor younger brother of Elon and Jeff. They can't afford to just throw money at the problem, so they have to be kind of have some ingenious solutions and be very efficient with their capital from that standpoint. But I think Neutron unlocks a lot. It was very enticing to hear the potential for within the next 9 to 15 months after you kind of get this test done, or 6 to 12 months, as you put it, after this test, that we should be, you know, on the pad and by end of 24 and potentially launching 3 different Neutron rockets within 2025, which will add 150, maybe more, to the bottom line. And it sounds like they're basically just all, like you said, pens are basically getting warmed up and licked, waiting for the end of this Archimedes test. And if that goes well, I think it'll be phenomenal. I don't understand why it wouldn't. They have no indications, or have not provided any indications that it won't go well. But, you know, stranger things have happened. But I think that this will unlock as well a lot of more revenue than we kind of allude to. I think there's going to be a coupling, I feel, and Spice didn't say it because I don't think he can guarantee any of these things. But you know, there are further tranches of the SDA missions that are going to be happening. So people are kind of asking Johnny Mac specifically, you know, are they going to get awarded more government contracts? You know, the SDA, this isn't the only tranche, right? You have to think this is basically a blanket of defense, right? The Space Development Agency is really the Space Force, ensuring that we have kind of a blanket around the United States and around the world to be able to act and have that sort of security blanket that is in Western defense, right? So they believe that that's going to be something that's more of a reoccurring revenue stream rather than a one and done. And so there's going to be launches that happen in 2029, 2030, etc. And so that's going to be something that is likely to be a recurring. Now, they can't say that. They haven't signed the papers, but, you know, they've now become a prime agency based off this SDA contract. So it's likely to continue down that path unless something bad happens. And once you kind of built a legacy within something, it generally speaking occurs. So there's that piece. But they also stated a little bit about crap. What was your question again? I feel like I'm diverging.
The
Neutron specific, yeah. I'll stop there, but I think that there's a lot of synergies with the SDA and the future launch for Neutron, and I'm excited to see how that gets married kind of in the future.
Yeah, let's put it this way: we can reasonably expect big contract announcements soon. Most probably for Neutron, or that's like basically for sure coming after the engine test, and probably also on the government side for more space systems, because yeah, as you said, these satellites, they need to be replenished, they need to be operated, and if you have done a good job in the first place on the first tranche, why would they not rehire you again to
and
do that?
The man seems there, right? Spice said something that was basically around the same sort of conversation, which is there's people that are looking to sign multiple Neutron deals, right? Not just like a, hey, $50 million one-off, $60 million one-off. They're literally trying to say, we need multiple Neutrons. Once you prove it up, we will be in line. And that could be, you know, the fact that they just need to get it on the pad, launch it into space, find somebody that's, you know, got the balls to take that risk of a first rocket launch, which there will be one. And once that happens, I'm fairly confident that it'll be successful. But you never know. You know, at the end of the day, there's always some risk, but I think they have enough capital now in the back end to do a couple tries without having the real worry. And you know, I'm curious to see what ends up happening with it, but I'm fairly confident that this will be a big pivot point for the organization. And I think coupling that with something that Spice mentioned specifically around do they see price escalations and stuff like that for Electron? And they basically stated that Haste, actually those contracts, due to the secrecy as well as just the guarantees, will actually be able to charge a larger upfront asking price. So probably closer to 10 million a piece rather than the 7 to 8 million a piece that you'll see. But you also see that they kind of said, if you have an existing contract with us, you'll have a price escalation about 3%. And then also, new people might have to be charged a higher price. So even though that $7-8 million price is kind of the standard for, say, existing customers, say some random person coming out of the woods comes up, they say, yep, the price is 10 million. We got to start there just based off of competition. And now it's starting to get to a place where I think you're going to be able to get the gross margins up. And they kind of confirmed the 40 to 40% gross margins that they're expecting out of Electron kind of going forward. So all in all, just very exciting call. I know I keep reiterating that, but
it was, yeah. And the link to it is in the description box below. And I feel that we have spoken enough about it now, but I really recommend, if you guys have not seen it, go to the link, save it, and when you have time, just check it out. You're not going to regret it as a Rocket Lab investor. So now the last Rocket Lab question, and then we can maybe quickly go through some other space news, because there has been also this week. So the earnings is very soon. I believe we have one more Rocket Lab Weekly before earnings. What do you think that can come up on the earnings that would move the stock one way or another? Like, what's the risk? And because I feel, the numbers were pre-released. There is not going to be any surprises there. We had this interview with Adam Spice where he confirmed that Neutron is on time. The customers are soon coming. So I'm like, what more can they say that is material to the stock price or would move the stock price on this earnings? I'm just curious on your take on this.
I don't think it'd be the earnings per se. I think it might be the color around the SDA contract, the color around the convertible debt, other things that I think why they pre-released is so they can focus 40 minutes or so around these pivotal deals that have been made, whether it's the actual signing of the SDA or the actual convertible debt agreement. And reason being, I wouldn't be surprised if they still announce the potential company that they're looking to acquire on February 7th, right? I think, there's 2 weeks until we really get to that point, and I wouldn't be surprised if they mention that. So there is that possibility. So very curious to see what ends up happening with respect to that. It could very well be that and that alone. These deals take time to finish, right? So even though they're kind of in the midst of getting all their funds from the convertible debt offering, deals don't close for a quarter, often sometimes 6 months after they're kind of talked about, right? And so the papers kind of happen, then you have to do all your due diligence and signing, etc., before the deals kind of finally merge together. So there's an opportunity to have overlap between the two, and I think that there's a possibility of that happening.
Yeah, you're theoretically right that the minute they announce the offering, they could have signed a contract with someone that says that we are buying your company for this price, contingent on that this convertible offering goes well, and plus due diligence and blah blah blah. So you're actually, I didn't think about this, that there is a chance that they could announce the company and that the contract is already signed. It was just contingent on certain things happening before.
We will see, my friend. We will see. I think that regardless, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's not the end. I think we're in for a very long haul, and hopefully people aren't expecting the moon tomorrow, but the people that are patient and wait the next 10, 15 years will be handsomely rewarded. It was fun. I was telling you last night that Palantir was my first individual stock position that it crossed over 100,000. I have many ETFs that are above 100,000, but then I was sitting around and thinking, I was just like, do I think that Palantir will be my first $200,000 individual stock position? And to be very frank, I don't. I think Rocket Lab will be that position. And definitely, if I think that Rocket Lab goes to where I see it potentially flying to, whether that's the moon, stars, or galaxies away. Kind of joking, of course, but whether it goes to the moon, Mars, or Venus, I could easily see it being the first $500,000 position in my portfolio as well. I don't think that we're too far off from some of the details that are in here that could see this grow, in the next 5 to 10 years to be a 10x. We're close to a $20 billion or $25 billion organization. You get a few of these contracts and consistent revenue streams. It doesn't take much to be a $25 billion company.
Yeah, it's such an interesting case because, for example, Palantir, that's also the first stock that I have a 200% win on, and that stock was like, it felt overvalued whenever we were looking at it, right? It was just, the question is like, how much overvalued, and now it's like less over, like it's not so little overvalued that it's sort of a buy, but I feel that Rocket Lab has the insane growth trajectory, and then on top of it, it's like half off compared to fair value. It's like on top of it, it's cheap, and that's why I tend to agree with you that it's such an interesting case study, because it's not, because for me, Palantir was like, I bought it for the growth. Like you looked into the future and you saw this growth, and then even if you buy it expensive, the company is going to grow into it. But Rocket Lab is like a double whammy for the good side, that it's like it has insane growth, and then on top of it, it's insanely cheap, and that's just not something that you see very often.
Yeah, the one thing I want to iterate is my one for, like, we're talking about 10x, 20x, 50x, like people that's probably getting people tight in their boxer briefs, right? And I get that.
And we're in weird sunglasses at the same time.
Well, mine are cool. Yours are a little bit no, I'm just kidding. But I like your glasses. But the thing that I'm talking about with folks, the 2020, we got 2020 vision on this one. I'm telling you, just give it time. Time will heal all wounds, and we will be vindicated, I'm sure, or validated, I'm sure. The thing that I want to note to people is, once again, start from the end. Where do you want this to be in your portfolio? Do you want this to be a $1,000 position? Do you want it to be a $50,000 position? And then back up, right? In order to make money, you need to put money into it, right? You need to give it some love. I'm not saying mortgage your house. I'm not saying any of that. I don't advocate for any of that. I say be smart, but I think put together this opportunity with your daily millionaire mindset thoughts. And what I mean by millionaire mindset thoughts are, save as much as you possibly can, not to just invest in Rocket Lab, but just in yourself, right? And I think the thought process that I think a lot of people do is they'll put $1,000 in and say, this is going to be my millionaire stock and I'm done, right? And it's like, well, to turn $1,000 into $1 million, you literally need 1,000x your position. How likely is that, right? This would need to be a multi-trillion-dollar company. Could it be that? Potentially. But I think what you need to do is start with the end in mind. What do you honestly really think that this company will be? Do you think it'll be 50? Do you think it'll be 100 billion? Then, you could be a 2025x from there. So if you think it's going to be a 2025x, then if you think it's going to be worth $1 million, or you want it to be $1 million in your position, then divide that by 25 and put that amount of money into it, if you can safely do so, right? I do not advocate for anybody putting money into a company that they're not comfortable with and can risk losing all of it, because that is possible. We saw just how irrational the market can be when this $355 million bond announcement was. It dropped 25% within the matter of hours. So, but I think if you have the advocation, but it takes money to make money. You can't just assume that this thing's going to be your millionaire maker. Like I said, think about how much money I have invested in this. Almost 9,000 shares. I'm hoping to get to 12,000 here pretty soon. And I'm excited that it might get to a $500,000 position. Might, right? But that's a lot of money I'm invested. It's over $50,000 to get to that 10x of $500,000, right? So, you have to think, you can't just put $50 in and assume you're going to be a millionaire. And this isn't about Rocket Lab. This is about you and hoping you guys meet your financial obligations. Take that step back and think about it, not just for Rocket Lab, for all your positions.
Very, very sound advice. So yeah, I think that was for Rocket Lab this week. I had a lot of other things planned, but I really don't want the show to go very, very long. Just one last thing that I want to get your thing. This week we had Lunar, or ticker symbol LUNR, Intuitive Machines. They launched on a SpaceX vehicle, and it's basically a private moon company. And their en route to the moon, we see if they're going to manage to land. There has been a lot of failures this year to land on the moon. I checked out the company as a possible investment. Have you done that? What do you think about the company? What do you think about this space news?
I don't necessarily dislike the company. In fact, I always hope for further competition. I think overall it'll be the best opportunity. It's very easy to buy and sell out of stocks, right? So if you find a company that is better than Rocket Lab, I might potentially sell out of it to buy into it. I just think at Rocket Lab at the moment is the best opportunity, but it's not to say that Intuitive Machines isn't a great opportunity either. I think that at the moment they could be a great company, so I'm not downplaying that. I just see them at the moment as a one-trick pony to an extent. I could be wrong on that. I haven't done full due diligence, so don't crucify me in the chat or comment section. It's out of ignorance that I say that, not with full due diligence that I say that. I'm happy for anybody that invested. I think Uncle Dave G had a little bit of funds in here, and I know some of you guys in the chat section also. So congratulations on your success. I think it's up over 150% within the past week or month I checked. So congratulations. That's phenomenal.
It's like 4x up.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It went from $2.11 to at $1.870.
There you go. So congratulations to anybody, and that was able to get a good buy-in price. I just think that this is one opportunity that has been seen from Lunar, and the way I look at it is Rocket Lab has had now within the next 24 hours, we will see the 44th opportunity with Electron, and then many other rockets before then with Rocket Lab. So it's a thing of consistency, and it's something I'll be watching for sure. I'm not going to dismiss this entirely, but I'm curious to see what other avenues they plan to take, because at the moment Rocket Lab has an end-to-end capability between getting themselves to not only build the satellites but to operate them once they're in space and also launch them there. I'm curious what Intuitive Machines long-term time horizon looks like. I don't know. I need to do more work.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't hear about, or like, I'm sure I've heard the name, but I never really seriously checked into the company. I did before this show. And my problem is exactly what you said, that if I look at Rocket Lab, they're an end-to-end space company that is well financed, and in the foreseeable future, we don't need extra financing. When I looked at their balance sheet and P&L, it's like they burn $20 million a year. They have, I think, $40 million in the bank. On top of it, they have debt in the company. They seem to have a very complicated equity structure. Like I don't even want the viewers to fall asleep, but they have like very niche convertible offerings, like 3 different types. One that is called like safe, one that is called like earn out equity, and then one more. And what I see in this company is that they're going to do, hopefully they succeed on this moon mission, but they will need to do a very big capital raise and come up with some very good plan on how they get to profitability. And it's just way too risky for me. It's just question mark after question mark after, like, everywhere you look, like equity structure, question mark. How do you get to cash flow, question mark. Is your current mission going to succeed, question mark. And that's not the kind of odds that I like to play with.
Very good. We'll see. It could grow into something beautiful, and could be a great component. And maybe Neutron will be launching some of these rockets someday, or some of these satellites that are lunar landers someday.
How much would it suck if they are the acquisition? that rocket.
I think they're worth $700 million at this point. I don't know if they'd be able to.
I actually checked. I think it was like 300 million or something like this. Even with this increase, like that's how low the struck price. I'm pretty sure. You can double check me on this if you want, but I'm pretty sure. You're checking?
No.
Okay.
I'm looking at the last comment. There is a launch later within the next 24 hours, almost like 15 hours from now. I think the launch window opens for Astroscale. I think is the company for a Japanese launch provider, or sorry, Japanese satellites specifically focused on space junk. We haven't discussed it at length yet, but I would love to wake up a little bit early and stream it with you if you're up.
Yeah, the only thing is that we have something like some guest broke the bed in the Airbnb, and I have to like go and fix it before new guests come.
Airbnb problems, man. I'm actually really excited. I'm glad you brought it up. You have bad problems. We're 70% booked for summer, so I'm really excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, this is the passive investment that no one talks about when you watch youth. Yeah. It's like these things. But I mean, we've been pretty lucky. This is, I think, the first one that somebody broke a furniture after a year and some months of operating the Airbnb, and I just have to put some screws in it. But the point is, my plan is that I finish on time and I'm able to come and stream the launch. But
hey, man, I'll be excited to have you. But I hear you. I know it's early there for you, so. Or it's late there for you, so you'll be waking up.
No, it's 4 p.m. 4 p.m. for me. So it's
no, I meant right now it's late for you. So by the time you get up, it'll be fine. But yeah, the bed thing obviously takes precedence. We actually had a boiler break in one of my mom's student rental. I don't own any of it, but I take care of it for her. And I was a little bit out of pocket, so excited. But it's a really good moneymaker for us. So we found out how old the boiler is. So we got to start saving up for that new boiler because it's like 20-something years old. So we're fortunate it's lasted this long. So love real estate, man. I think about it. I've started to get my eye into it a little bit more. And it's you just got to take, like, if you don't, like, there's headaches, but it's like if you just take if you could pick up a phone, make some phone calls, and you have no problems doing that, I think you'll be a great landlord, right? But I think if you're scared to pick up the phone, and then it's a little bit different.
I was just going to say that I think that it has a learning curve to it, like anything, and I think that Robert Kiyosaki and many other people like this, that they give you a false picture and say that this is like a passive investment, and it is not. Buying stocks and doing this Rocket Lab Weekly has been way more passive for me than any of the real estate investment that I have done. But if you're able to, handle that and go through it, it's a very nice and stable investment. Everything has its pros and cons, but it's definitely not passive. I have a lot of stories, but cool. Then we see tomorrow if we stream or not. I will let you know.
Absolutely, my friend. I will have a chat with you. But thank you. Thanks for this. It's always a fun time. Hopefully, people didn't mind my over enthusiasm. I'm just very fired up about the stock.
Look, when it's warranted to be fired up, it's amazing, and I definitely think it's warranted. I'm also wearing the glasses, so. Cool. Thanks everybody for watching. At one point we had, I think, over 80 people, which is very nice.
Awesome. Congratulations.
And thank you. And it's your work also.
No, it's a group effort.
Exactly. So see you everyone next week, maybe tomorrow, and have a great week. Bye everyone.
Bye.